So in the previous session, Curtis concluded awareness raising to build autonomy. It's very essential in education. And I believe one of the approaches that educators can do is introducing some advising skills and tools in our language classroom or in one-to-one advising sessions with our students. So in this session, I'm going to talk about some advising skills and tools. So before starting my session, I have a question to you guys. What is most important in advising? Giving useful advice, asking questions to encourage reflection, listening to the learner's story, or encouraging the learner to be more positive about his or her learning. So please use annotation function to answer this question. I hope you know how to annotate.
Sorry, I don't think I set up annotation setting for.
Oh no.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so in that case, please answer. Please put your answer in the chat box.
Yep.
So that I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if everyone could just write your answers in the chat.
Oh, okay. If you have to choose one, what would you choose? Asking questions. It's very interesting. Listening, asking questions, asking questions, asking questions. Yeah, very interesting. Listening, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think all of them are correct. But I think the most important thing that we need to care about is listening to the learner's story. And while listening to our learner's stories, we can think about what kind of reflective questions we can ask them to deepen their reflection. So in my session, I'm going to focus on listening to the learner's story to encourage their reflection in advising sessions. And today's my talk is basically based on this book, Reflective Dialogue, written by Satoko Kato and Joe Maynard in 2016. So if you have already attended Joe, Satoko, Curtis, or Hisako's advising workshops, or you have, if you have read Reflective Dialogue already, please attend my workshop while having some coffee, or I don't know, eating breakfast or doing yoga, please relax and enjoy my session. Yeah. Okay. So according to Satoko and Joe, there are three principles that we need to care about in our advising sessions. Focus on the learner. That means it's not about you. Keep an open mind. So don't have a stereotypical ideas or a prejudice or a strong ideas to prevent learners from reflection. So you need to leave your assumption at the door. And also you need to think about, you need to care about, you need to have you need to take a neutral position. So no judgment. So in Japan, often teachers are encouraged to be a person who has many drawers. 引き出しの多い先生 in Japanese. Because a teacher has many drawers, he or she can help his or her students. There are a lot of suggestions that the teacher can provide to the student. But I think in advising sessions, I think we need to think about closing your drawers and focus on the learner. Because once you open your drawer and talks about your experience or talks about your own perception, I think suddenly advising session is teacher dominant session, and student might have less opportunity to open up their ideas or thought. So when you conduct your advising session, please consider those 3 principles and close up your own drawers. Okay. So I quite like this metaphor. Like language learning is similar to, or it's like, you know, climbing up a mountain. So we don't really know what your learner, what kind of mountain your learner is climbing right now. There might be an alligator under the river waiting, you know, for the learner, or, you know, maybe like the weather was not really good. We are not sure. But in advising sessions, we can encourage or we can support learners to think about what actions they can take in order to achieve their goal or in order to achieve their plan. So that kind of support is very important in advising session. And it's not like us giving direct suggestion. It's more like learners decide what they want to do in order to achieve their success. Okay. So the first of all, I will introduce the basic advising strategies focusing on intentional listening. So 5 advising strategies for intentional listening are repeating, restating, summarizing, empathizing, complementing. So the first of all, repeating. So repeating key phrases that a learner had said using more or less the same words. So for example, if the learner said, I can't say what I want to say in English in a gloomy voice, you can repeat, oh, you can't say what you want to say in English. So repeating the same gloomy voice. So repeating shows that advisor is listening to the learner. And also it promotes a dialogue between you and the learner. And not only like repeating the words that your learner is saying, but also repeating the emotion is also quite important. So the second strategy is restating. Restating is reformulating a key phrase. So for example, I'm having a hard time reading English. And the advisor said, you're struggling to read English. So the learner can reconfirm and notice other ways to express herself. Especially like advising session might be a little bit challenging for new students, and because of nervousness, sometimes like a student cannot really say what she wanted to say. In that case, restating is really, really powerful to show how the learner can express their feeling or thought in a different way. So that allows the learner to realize how his or her words are interpreted by others. And it's really effective in both first language and foreign languages. Even like in Japanese, when I have Japanese sessions with students, they often say, oh yeah, that's something I wanted to say. Yeah, そう言いたかった in Japanese. So restating is really, really powerful. And the next one is summarizing. So summarizing is bringing together the main points before promoting deeper reflection. And the summarizing is very useful when learner keeps talking. So while summarizing, you can show that you are listening to the learner. And also you can have like a mutual understanding. You can clarify what the learner is working on, and also you can check understanding how the learner is feeling and thinking. And like if you're not sure the summary you made was correct or not, I think you can simply ask your learner, is that correct? and that like helps us to make sure like we are on the same page. Then later on, maybe you can start asking some reflective questions to help your learner reflect deeply on their experience. And empathizing. So empathizing is understanding a person's internal state and imagining how she or he is thinking and feeling. So for example, I finally passed the interview for studying abroad. I put my life on the line for this for ages. And the advisor could say, yeah, you passed. I've seen you worked really hard and it must have been a tough road. Congratulations. You can also like empathize with some like negative emotions or experiences that the learner is facing. Especially last year under the pandemic, sometimes like a student couldn't really focus on something positive. They are really stressed out and they couldn't find a good solution to deal with the negative emotion they're facing. And in that case, you don't really need to make your learner feel positive. I think it's okay to embrace negative emotions together. That's another way that you can use empathizing in your advising session. And it establishes a trust relationship. And the learner is more likely to open up. Like sharing both positive and negative experiences, it's really powerful. Especially last year, I noticed that many learners, they don't really have people who can express their feelings like one-to-one, or even like a family members. Like sometimes like they can't really talk about their struggles with their family members. So when you notice your learner started sharing their personal like struggles or some like, positive achievements he or she has done, please focus on it and please highlight what he or she is feeling to build a trust relationship. And complimenting. Complimenting is identifying something that interests or motivates a learner, or pointing out something in order to help a learner to move on. And it shows that learner is noticed or valued. And it also acknowledges and encourages effort. Some advisors, they start with like a little compliment as an icebreaker, something like, oh, I like your shoes, or something like, oh yeah, you look happy today, did you have something good? And having like some like positive vibes in the beginning of advising session, and that might influence learner to share their story or not. Yeah, or yeah, acknowledging or encouraging effort, something like, great work, I knew you could make it, you've done doing so hard, and I believe you can do this. That kind of like a compliments are also really powerful, because sometimes, like, especially like my learners, like they tend to focus on negative things, like I can't do this, I'm not good at this, I don't think I'm a good learner. In that case, like your like a little compliment is really, really powerful for them to think about their own learning or themselves more positively. Okay, so these are the basic 5 advising skills or strategies, especially for intentional listening. And these are for building rapport and trusting relationship. So now like I would like to quickly introduce my experience as an advisor in my first year in the SOC. at Kanda. So I was focusing on providing good questions in advising sessions, but I always felt my advising sessions didn't go well. So like I wasn't really sure like how I could develop my advising sessions. And during that time, I saw a really casual advising session between a senior learning advisor and a student. And their dialogue was something like this. Hi, Rika, how are you? And the student answered, I'm sad. Then the advisor asked, you're not asked, repeated what she said. You are sad. And the student said, yes, my presentation didn't go well. And the advisor responded, oh, your presentation wasn't successful. Yeah, because da 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 da. So the senior advisor was only using basic advising skills, repeating, restating. But the student like suddenly started talking about their experiences. And interestingly, the student started talking about why her presentation didn't go well and what she could do the next time. So first of all, I thought in order to have a good advising session, I should think about some good questions. But the basic advising skills are really, really powerful for students to think about what they're just saying. So it was like really like opening moment for me. So since then, like whenever I feel my advising session is not going well, I always go back to the basic advising skills. And it means if you're using the basic advising skills, you're focusing on your learner more. When I was in the first year as an advisor, I was focusing on myself. I was thinking about how I can ask or how I can make good questions or like how I can make my advising sessions better. So my focus was always me, 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 and me. I wasn't really focusing on the student. So yeah, like in your advising sessions, if you felt like your advising session didn't go well, maybe like you could go back to the basic advising skills in order to focus on your learner more. Okay, so next I'm gonna a little bit talk about how we can promote autonomy through reflective dialogue. So reflective dialogues start with asking a reflective question. So reflective questions are important to promote autonomy, and reflective questions give opportunity for learner to explore his or her knowledge, skill, experiences, attitude, beliefs, and values. So not helping students to think about their experiences, but also more core aspects of their learning or themselves, such as attitude, beliefs, and values. And reflective questions should be chosen based on the learner's developmental stage. So the powerful questions. So the powerful questions are well-timed and purposeful questions which stimulate reflective processes. And those questions are related to learners' values. And because the questions are related to learners' values, you might not get immediate response from the learner. So in that case, like welcome the silence. And also like for the learner, it might be their first time to think about that reflect the powerful question. So in my advising session, like if the learner stops answering and said sorry to me, I always tell him or her, you don't have to say sorry because the advising session is for you. And, you know, if like, you know, you receive a question, something you have never thought about, maybe in your mind, there are so many things going on. So it's kind of normal to have silence. So as an advisor, I think you need to kind of create a safe space for learners to welcome the silence. Maybe in English classes, I think learners are often told by their teachers, you shouldn't stop your conversation in discussion or in, you know, like a casual conversation tasks. So that's why like a learner tend to feel sorry if they stop their conversation, but in advising session, it's totally okay. And creating that safe environment is one of our roles. And the powerful question, the examples of powerful question is something like, what does learning English mean to you? Or who control your progress? And I think these questions are quite difficult for us to answer. So it's totally okay to have some silence. And also, as I mentioned, we need to create a safe environment for learner to accept the silence. Okay. So how can we formulate powerful questions? Maybe we can start with asking simple questions, something like yes, no question. Why are you able to carry out your plan? Yes or no? And later on, where were you able to focus on your learning? What activity did you do in the SOC? How do you feel about it? Why do you think you could focus on your learning? So like depending on the learner's level, you can start from yes, no question, or you can start from like what question. It's up to you and it's up to your learner. Okay. All right. So I think I have about 5 minutes. So I'll quickly introduce advising tools. The first one is motivation graph. So motivation graph helps learners to recognize the fluid nature of motivation. You know, just like this image, you know, motivation is like a roller coaster. It's okay to have like ups and downs. And it helps learners think about their past experiences and promote reflections on what has motivated and demotivated them in the past. And it can also aid in making decisions to help learners with current issues regarding motivation. And also like they can share the motivation graph with their classmates or others. So the motivation graph looks like this. That's my motivation graph for English learning and French learning. Yeah. Okay. So the second advising tools are diagnostic test and self-evaluation sheets. And those sheets help learners to find his or her strengths and weaknesses in a given language area. As I mentioned earlier, especially my students, they tend to focus on like negative points a lot. So diagnostic tests and self-evaluation sheets are really, really effective for learners to think about something positive about their language skills. And also those sheets help learners to establish a starting point when designing a learning plan. And they can also take the same test or sheet regularly to evaluate their ongoing process and progress. So this is a TOEIC diagnostic sheet. And this is listening self-evaluation sheet. And this is what me and my advisee made during advising session in terms of speaking self-evaluation. So the text in orange are like things the student was happy about. And the blue one were the things that a student want to develop more. And 20 is the score that she gave herself about her speaking. So you don't have to prepare the sheet like them, but like you can use just a piece of paper and pen to support your learner self-evaluation in advising sessions. Okay, so to wrap up my talk, I think like in education, I think we always have like a conflict whether like we should have more advisor mode or teacher mode. But I hope the advising skills and tools I mentioned today were applicable for both advisors and teachers. And both are applicable for one-to-one advising session or for classroom activities. And once like you try advising sessions or advising tools, I think it's nice to have ongoing reflection with yourself and also colleagues. You can always get like a, useful like a suggestion or advice or, a nice like a reflection with your colleagues. So I think ongoing reflection with yourself is quite important to develop your advising techniques. And I highly recommend that like you should read this reflective dialogue, because whenever I read it, I found like a new discovery. So yeah, I think that's all for me. So yeah, thank you for listening.